Whose turn is it? Ms. Bradall, would you like to lead the flag salute? Sorry if I went out of order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy and Suzanne, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Trustee Bradall?
Here.
Trustee Shiokari?
Here.
Trustee Levy?
Here.
Trustee Gould?
Here.
Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio portion of these meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meetings. The board met in closed session regarding negotiations and public employee performance evaluation superintendent. No action was taken. Okay, we have the minutes of May 11th. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes from May 11th? Okay, do I have a motion to approve them?
I motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. The consent agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Does the superintendent, any member of the board, or the public want to remove any item from the consent agenda? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda and consent agenda. I second.
All in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. Communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. It is my tremendous pleasure to ask if LSEA has anything for us. And you know, I noticed it says that the maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes, but it doesn't say anything about singing.
That's a good point. I was hoping you wouldn't hold us to that. It's not every teacher that can say they work with a rock star. Ortega's resident rock star has written our new school song, and they're here to perform it for you.
What we thought we'd do first, we recorded it on GarageBand, and so it's a 1 minute 47 second song. So I thought what we'll do first, we'll play the recording, and then the kids are going to perform it live. Okay, so if that's okay. Okay, so they're going to be stood there doing nothing for 1 minute 40 seconds. So Emily, have you got the speaker? That's 30 seconds now. Okay, so this is the song. So basically what we wanted to do is write a song which encapsulated the spirit of Ortega and the otters and the geography of the place. So this is the song we came up with.
Working hard for a future that's bright.
I forgot. So actually timed out, so. I just pressed the wrong button. Anyway, that's basically the song. Now, they're going to perform it. Okay, good hold on this week. So, we practiced this a couple of times in class, so
Yes, we have.
this is going to go really well. No dancing this time.
It took away our playtime, so
Yeah.
this better be good.
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Was it worth it? Was it worth losing your recess?
I guess so.
Great.
Okay. Okay, CSEA, your dance routine is up next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, nobody from CSEA here? No? Okay. People wishing to address the board? Cool. Correspondence?
Yes, I did receive some communication from San Mateo Community College District, and it's really just a notification about a site that we used to own, or the Laguna Salada Union School District. The site is located on College Drive off of Skyline Boulevard, and what the district has declared is 8 acres of the site as surplus property and intends to sell approximately 6 acres for single-family development. The proceeds from the sale of the 6 acres will be used to benefit the San Mateo County Community College District by financing the construction of affordable faculty and staff housing on the remaining 2 acres. The sale will be held through a request for proposal process. Responses to the request for proposals are due on Wednesday, June 29th, 2016 at 3 p.m. at the district's office, which is located at 3401 CSM Drive, San Mateo. If people have questions about that, they may contact Barbara Christensen as the Director of Government and Community Relations.
Thank you. Okay. Board Superintendent Communications. Laverne, would you like to go first?
Sure, I was sick last month, so I'm kind of just catching up. So go through really quickly. Last month I went to the Drug and Alcohol Parent Focus Group, and very interesting information to find out about our youth. And just one example is some children can start experimenting with alcohol as young as 12 years old. And so I'm really interested in following up with that. This is kind of out of order. The Kent Awards Went to that, and that was really nice. That's one of my favorite things to do, even before I was on the board. One of the science teachers took me as her +1 when they won the award that year, and it's just really amazing to see all the different things that the county's doing as far as their additional programs. Phone banking. Let's see, I think, once I reached the people, like half of them were in support of it, and then the other half were just message machines. And so I'm feeling really good about that after talking with some people. I went to the diversity meeting. Now, I'm not sure how I came onto this, but I go to the Ocean Shore diversity meetings, and they were talking about some really important, heavy subjects this last time. One of the ex-board members is actually forming a committee to discuss Indigenous Peoples Day. And so maybe later on, Cynthia Kaufman, and so maybe later on we can talk about adding it to the agenda, maybe in August, September, sometime in there.
Yeah, I think we have it on our September.
Do we already have it there?
Yeah.
Okay. Phone banking. Ortega Open House, I went to that. That was one of the fun things that I did. Spent a lot of money on the raffles. They have the best prizes. And I went all in with the Disneyland, but somebody else got it. The joint articulation meeting with the city, the water department, Jefferson Union. I think the most surprising thing is, Pacifica has been doing really well with conserving water, but we're going to expect a significant pay increase in August, I think it is. Maybe, 30 or 40%? It's really high.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Rainbow Fest, I went to the Rainbow Fest. All I can really say about that is it's really touching to go there and, just see the balloons, all the kids are singing, and the history. And then the last one was graduated from the Masters in Governance program. So that, I believe, is really important when you're becoming a new board member. There's so much you need to learn, and that's one place to start. So I really benefited from that. Thank you.
Andrea?
Since we just had a board meeting last week, I have not had much time to do things, but I wanted to say that I got to hear this last night on YouTube. So they are on YouTube.
Wow.
And I heard it last night because I've been doing a class all year long with 3 people from Pacifica. So Patrick Jackson and Beth Bolt and Joanne Simonson have every Tuesday night we have a class, and it has been wonderful working with the 3 of them. Everybody's working on their administrative credential, and just to kind of see the talent that we have in this district. They're just, some other random people sitting in the room with me, but they're some of the most talented people in that room. So it's been my pleasure to work with them. And then Patrick, we did a project, or we've done one project here this year, and that was the one last night. And Patrick says, I know what we're going to do for this project about community. I'm going to bring in that video. And so everybody loved it. And it was, it's people from all over the Bay Area, and they were just tickled to hear the Ortega song. So, and I was tickled to work with those teachers and administrators. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you want to take your shot? Well, besides the Elna Flynn, also, that was a wonderful evening in the Kent Awards. We had the Oceans Week, and there was a presentation by Stephen Johnson, and he showed his pictures of Antarctica. And so that seemed to be very well received by the students, and they were learning about the whaling that used to be done down there and how the whales are all coming back. And so they really seemed to enjoy that. And the Cabrilla Open House, Mr. Katz's string band was playing during the open house, so it was a very fun room to be in. And I was impressed at how young they were, and they were playing without anyone directing them and going down their song list, and they just took charge of the whole thing. So for such a young age too. And yesterday, LSEA had a nice reception at the tap room for all the teachers, and so went by there. And the 4th and 5th grade music concert last night, and then they have another one tonight, where all the kids were doing numbers with their recorders, ukuleles, and singing. So they had a good evening. So, quite a few things, it's only been about 2 weeks since this meeting.
On the Flynn with everyone. I attended the Pacifica School Volunteers. They had a volunteer recognition up at Sunset Ridge, and absolutely amazing how much time our volunteers give to our district and the high school district. It's really incredible. I attended the Ortega Science Fair, and that was very dynamic, and I've learned a lot of information about gummy bears dissolving in various liquids and all kinds of. It was really fun though, reading through all of the hypothesis and steps, and some of them you could see where those kids just got that aha moment. It was really wonderful. I also went down to Half Moon Bay. Their library held a disabled activities fair, and I guess they've done it for quite a few years now, and went down with Paula Texera from our Pacifica library, and they are considering doing something similar here. Oh. So I offered not your services, but your support. I did not say you'll take it on, but just in case they do something similar here, it might be kind of a fun activity.
Okay. Cool. In addition to a bunch of stuff that's already been mentioned by the time it gets to me, it always happens. So Alana Flynn, the LCA event, and I got to go on a field trip with my daughter to Chinatown yesterday, which was fun, and then have been putting in a lot of work, working with Dr. Tukloff and on the Odstad project, which hopefully we'll hear more on soon, and something else. So
along with all that, the one thing that I think is really important to highlight is the fact that for the music and the choral, we could not have had that happen without the support of Pacifica Education Foundation, because they do pay for the music instructor who did the 4th and 5th grade choral, and tonight they're doing it as well, some performances. And it was just so amazing to see those students standing up there and just thoroughly, it's called joyful learning, joyful performances. And she did it all in this 1 year. She just pulled, Marion Alessandrani pulled it all together, and we really need to applaud her and our students for all of their work and services. I also want to note that this morning, this room was full of math manipulatives and boxes and trays, and they're all gone now. And I have to thank Educational Support Services, Jill Macedo, and Stacy Russell, math coordinator, Tina, their efforts in ensuring that we got the orders in early. We want the teachers to have the materials and supplies, and they're at the schools now, and we're prepping for the 2-day math institutes that will be occurring over the summer over several sessions, and to prepare our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers on the implementation of Bridges math curriculum for our K-5 students. So I think that's exciting as well. And then I think I'm part of Valamar Next Door, so I could just get to see what's happening in the community, etc. And one of the things that came out of our joint articulation meeting was that conversation around alcohol and drug use in Pacifica community. And one of our outcomes was whether Chief Steidel could put out some messages, especially now around graduation time, etc. And so I saw how there was an article in Nextdoor, a couple of them, about the social host ordinance and what it means and how we can, as a community, can support our students in ensuring that they do the right thing. As well as having an article in the Tribune regarding the use of alcohol, etc. And just to have to be really thoughtful about our experiences and what can happen. So I think this type of collaboration is very clear, indicative of how we do work in Pacifica. And so it's really exciting. So we're working on a summer learning program with the library for reading. And they follow very similar approaches to how we do our work with the balanced literacy in our schools, and so reading logs, etc. So it's really exciting to see how we just collaborate and move together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. District business. The district values the goals provided in our Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and our strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals, and one or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our Agenda Online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information, Board of Trustees, or over there on the wall. Okay, item 10A, public hearing on LCAP and LCFF. Ms. Van Raaphorst.
So the purpose of tonight's presentation on the LCAP is to hear public recommendations or comments regarding our LCAP. The LCAP has been a year-long process. It develops a 3-year plan for our district that's aligned with our budget and explains how our supplemental funds will be used to support the students that generate those funds. We had a work study on May 25th where we went over in detail all of the components of the LCAP, including our stakeholder engagement in Section 1, our Section 2, which is our goals and actions, which we have condensed our actions from the 7 that you see behind me to 3 actions that are 3 goals, that are more broad. We've made our metrics more concise, and the LCAP also includes a summary of how we will meet the needs of our students from those subgroups, which is the English learners, low income, and foster youth. There were some updates from the May 25th meeting that are listed on the memo that you've seen, that we did a little bit of rewording to goal number 1. We included the school libraries support items that we were not sure whether we were going to include or not, the lead position materials purchases. The phone and public address systems were included, and we corrected an amount that was incorrect for the 6-8 music program. And then we adjusted the supplemental funds to match with the May revise and included translation services for parents at workshops. So now the next steps are to, like I said, hear public comments. The board has an opportunity to make any last comments about the LCAP, and then it will come for approval on June 15th in conjunction with the budget, which Josie will talk about after this item. And also wanted to mention, in compliance with program improvement in Title I, that LEAP, the LEA plan, which was kind of what we used to do, and now we've moved to LCAP, but the federal accountability still requires us to update one small portion of the LEA plan, so that will come for your approval at the next meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any public comments for the LCAP. Does the board have any further discussion? We had a very the board has all we have been LCAP up to here. I wanted to say thank you to you for creating this document, just for, for anybody who's first encountering LCAP right now. It's 134 pages. It's a very detailed document, and we will be sending out, we have like a 2-page summary of that I think we'll be sending out to sort of everyone in the district, like our employees and parents and everybody like that, and so that they can get a condensed version of it. But people are absolutely welcome to take a look at the whole thing. It's attached to the board agenda item if people want to take a look at the whole thing. And
there's also a section on our website that has the link to all of the documents, the full document, the 2-page executive summary, the 6-page, a little bit more detailed summary, and the questions and answers document that we compiled in working with our stakeholder groups through the drafts, is what kind of questions were coming up. So.
Absolutely, and I would encourage anybody who is interested in the process and wants to be more involved in it to let somebody in the district office know, because we're always looking for people who want to help contribute to the LCAP process. We don't want it to be the same people every single year. So anyone who's interested is really welcome to help.
They can let the principal know too, and that would be
perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll bring this back and we'll for adoption on the 15th. Item 10B, public hearing on the 2016-2017 budget. Oh, sorry.
We have a problem because that item can't start until after 7:30.
Oh, right, it's not 7:30 yet. Okay. Public hearing, how about let's move to the year-end budget transfers. We can do that, right?
Yes.
Because we can't do the reserves either.
Right.
All right, so approval of resolution 2016-0601A, year-end budget transfers. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, this is an annual item. It's a routine matter where the board authorizes staff to make year-end budget transfers between different categories in order to close the 2015-2016 school year, the books. And so there's a resolution attached for action by the board in order to submit to the County Office of Education so that we can close the books and make those transfers.
Right. And for everyone's information, this needs to be done. Otherwise, there could potentially be warrants that we would not be able to pay without having a board meeting to approve them. So,
correct.
All right. Do I have any discussion on the resolution? Okay. Do I have this is an action item, so I need a motion to approve it.
I motion to approve.
Okay. All in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the possible cancellation of the July 6th and August 3rd board meetings. Dr. Tuckloff.
So in the December 2015 board meeting, we do adopt our schedule for the remainder of the year up through to December of 2016 16. At that time, we develop also activities and items that we would do during those particular board meetings, schedule actions and items. For July 6th, currently we do not have any board items that necessarily need to be addressed. Usually we use July as that month where staff can go on vacation and get their rest as they prepare for the new year. And we also wanted to look at potentially August 3rd. If there was anything that I think that we could put in August 3rd, we did receive some additional board policies for manual maintenance that we might be able to, you would have the summer to read, and then we could do the first reading on August 3rd if you would like to cancel the August 3rd meeting. So I bring forward to you the proposal to, one, cancel the July 6th meeting, and then two, to have a discussion about whether you would like to have the August 3rd meeting.
Does anyone have any opinions about or objections to canceling the July 6th meeting first? Okay. All right, so it sounds like there's agreement that that's okay. And then for the August 3rd meeting, basically what it comes down to is we have a number of board policies, and I had made the suggestion that we could do the first reading of those board policies on the 3rd. I don't think we have anything else to do, but we would have a good amount of time to read those policies, and then they would come back for adoption at the August 24th meeting, that first day of school meeting. And my suggestion for that is that oftentimes the board policies kind of bloat the meeting, and so it helps to separate them out and get them done. We could do it at a separate meeting, which would be pretty quick. So what do you guys think about that? I know that, I think you're not going to be here, so the suggestion from Dr. Tuckloff was that, we can send out the policies, and if there's anything that you're like, I'd really like to discuss this, then we'll just take it off and move it to August 24th. So just make sure to, let her know. Does that seem, what do you guys think? Would anybody rather just put all the policies on August 24th? We can do it all at one meeting if you prefer.
How full is August 24th?
Pardon me?
How full is August 24th?
already? What does it say?
Well, I think we could, for August 24th, I was going to have the Oddstad property update after, if we are able to have our work study and then we work through the summer. I was going to bring forward the operations plan. We've just did a session on that with Leadership Council. The teacher support plan, which we just completed. We do share with you what our student enrollment is at that time, and then we go over trustees' new assignments. There are approximately 12 minor revisions and 12 board policy maintenance and administrative regs to cover.
I think that was my main concern, is that we have the March manual maintenance
On the 15th.
that, oh, I see, but and you would bring that back. If we
Yeah.
didn't do August 3rd, you have that for
We would-
consent on the 24th. I
Right.
see, okay. Gotcha. What do you think?
I'm fine with, having a short meeting on the 3rd. I'm back at work, so I've got nothing
Yeah.
else to do.
And is it, do things kind of pop up right before school that we need to look at? That's my only thing. I'm thinking it might be kind of good at least to have a short meeting,
We could, and so it just gives us a nice little marker place, in case. And then again, as you said, if there are some board, we'll get those to you early on. So if there are some items that we could just pull and put for first reading on October 24th or 23rd.
August, yeah.
Yeah, August. I am
Okay.
missing my month. I talked about February.
Okay, so it sounds like the direction is we'll cancel July 6th and we'll have the August 3rd.
Okay.
We'll have the August 3rd meeting, and we'll just keep you up to date on if there's anything that's getting added to it as we go. Okay.
So could we have an act?
Do we need to have a vote?
A vote, yes.
Okay.
To cancel.
I'll
All
move
right.
to cancel the July meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay. Now I think we can go back to 10B because it's 7:30. So we're going to have public hearing on the 2016-2017 budget. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you. Along with the LCAP, we also reviewed the budget in great detail last Wednesday during the study session. And so tonight I just kind of prepared a short PowerPoint. We do have the full budget posted online, and we'll also have the full PowerPoint presentation from last Wednesday's meeting posted online. So what we have now is a preliminary budget based on the governor's May revision, based on the information we have at the time. Our final staffing, the final state budget, all of that will be done in June and then August. And so in first interim, we will have a more accurate projection of our budget. But here is what we have for now. Again, the budget is aligned with the LCAP. And our guiding principle is a balanced investment in people, operations, and program for the benefit of our students. This is just a review of the budget cycle. I won't read all of the dates, but after this, we'll wait for the state to adopt their budget, and then we'll be able to prepare our first interim report based on the state's actual budget, and we'll have that done in November. This is something that we found, interesting to share, and we talked about this last Wednesday, is with the new state funding model, we talk a lot about gap funding and targets, and what's been happening with the state funding is when you hear gap funding and you hear large percentages, in the beginning, 50% is a large amount of money for all school districts in the state because there's how much funding they're currently receiving and then what their target is. But as the school districts start getting closer to their target, a gap funding percentage of 50%, 60% is no longer a lot of money, and that's what we're trying to demonstrate here in this bar chart. And you know, we did talk about it last Wednesday. I don't know if anybody has any follow-up comments or questions, but I did want to kind of bring that back for people who weren't here last week.
Yeah, just to clarify, so that people understand that the gap percentage is the percentage between where we are now and LCFF implementation, not where we were when we began LCFF
Yes.
and full implementation, which would make a lot more sense. But
Right.
yes.
It's the new state target. And then the other thing that we talked about last week is there's no COLA in this May revise. In the January proposal, there was a small COLA of about 1.something%. That impacts us more than the gap funding percentage because the COLA is added onto our amount of funding per student, and that increases our target. So with the 0% COLA, now there's a lower target. And so the gap funding percentage is not as critical as the COLA, the ongoing COLA. Also, without the COLA, there's no funding for special education, and there's no increased funding for special education and child nutrition. So that does have a big impact on our school district. So here's a chart that just relays the difference between what was projected in January based on the governor's proposal and what he projected in May. We'll again bring the June final budget once we have that information. You can see the COLA, that was actually 0.47%, is now 0%. One-time discretionary funds, what that is the state used to have school districts prepare mandate claims, and there was a large, what they called the wall of debt that the state owed school districts for claims that they had filed and the state had never reimbursed. And so they found another way of repaying school districts, and they're paying school districts now in what is the form of one-time discretionary funds for old mandate claims, and each year the governor makes suggestions of how school districts should use those funds. Last year it was for the implementation of Common Core, and they continue to make those suggestions along with deferred maintenance and some other one-time items. And so in January it was projected at about $660,000, and it went up to $726,000 in the May revision. And then I have a chart that shares how those funds are being spent based on a lot of discussion that the board had in January and then further discussion last week during our study session. Attendance, ADA, Pacifica ADA, we're projecting it to at 3,066 students. That's the actual students in their seats, not our enrollment. So that's conservative at this time, and we're hoping that'll increase, which will increase our funding. And so the change in LCFF funding from January to May is not that much funding. And then when you look at our whole multi-year, you'll see that there isn't a lot more money because we've had other increases in the budget. And we talked a lot about that last Wednesday, but I'm just trying to give a little information for people who may not have been there. And then supplemental funds, there was an increase, and Tina already mentioned this. She did change the LCAP to reflect the increase in supplemental funding so that it matches the budget. Then a review of how our revenues are broken out. The biggest areas are our state revenues, and there's components of the state revenues that are in boxes. So when you say LCFF, it's really comprised of school districts' property taxes and EPA, which is Prop 30, the Education Protection Account, which starts to begin sunsetting in 2017. So that's the $3.8 million. And that's where we used to have a lot of discussion about loans and how the school district has to borrow money every year because we don't have the cash flow because the state doesn't pay us. So when they passed Prop 30, we no longer had that issue with cash flow. And so now looking at that number, 3.8 million, we have to think about how is the state going to make up those funds once those sales tax and personal income tax starts to sunset in 2017. And then property taxes, there's a big shift over the last 3 years where Pacifica didn't used to receive a lot of property taxes. It was mostly state funds, and there was a lot of cash flow issues at the end of the year. Now that we're getting more property taxes, the cash flow issues are in November before taxes are paid, and then again in February and March. And when you look at our cash flow, there's a big document attached to this that has a 2-year cash flow. You'll see negative cash flows in those months, but it's okay as long as we close the year on June 30th with a positive cash flow. And then the other revenues, you can see the parcel tax. It's really important. There's 4% of our budget, and we have a chart on exactly what the district is spending on parcel tax funds. And then you can see the different categories for state special ed, other local. And then another thing that just to mention to you is the STRS GASB That's the new accounting rule for school districts to reflect what the state is paying for STRS, which is the teacher's retirement system. And so it really skews our budget because we have to book a revenue for that amount of money and an expense. And this year in 15-16 it was about $750,000, and next year it shows a big increase in the budget because it's over $1 million. And so you're booking a revenue and you're booking an expense, which inflates our budget, but there's no fiscal impact, except that you have to have higher reserve percentages and some other things that are required based on your total budget. So that's just a revenue breakdown. We went through the expenditure budget assumptions last week. Here's a summary. The thing to think about is our staffing will be final in August when everybody comes back, and we'll have more accurate numbers there. We also really don't know what the health benefit costs are going to be. CalPERS will be announcing their health benefit rates in June. You'll see it, probably see it in the news, what the Kaiser rates are and what CalPERS rates are, and we're really hoping it doesn't increase too much because Kaiser went down last year. So that could have a big impact on our budget. And then retirement contribution increases. This is impacting both the employees and the employers, but I only reflected the portion that impacts employers. But it does have a personal impact on our teachers and classified staff as well because they're having to contribute more from their paychecks each month. And then we talked about the Child Nutrition Fund and how we have a contribution each year, and then deferred maintenance, which is really crucial in keeping the schools, the painting that we're doing. And then operations increase, Laverne just talked about the water. So in our budget, we have an increase for water and other utilities. And then insurance, this is another thing that's a statewide issue, is there are more and more lawsuits. And so in San Mateo County, we have suffered some lawsuits in both property damage and liability. And in San Mateo County, the rates are projected to increase 10 to 15% multi-year. Ours only went up 7% this year for this budget, but we do need to keep that in mind and continue projecting for those increases. So ongoing expenses. During the February study session, we knew that we had an increase in LCFF funding, and in order to begin the school year, the board did make decisions on some expenditures, and those are all listed on the chart. Last week, we did not make any additional ongoing expenses out of LCFF funds, but you'll see in the parcel tax budget that we did make some changes based on last week's study session. So these are all changes that on the top that impact the school sites and really help. They were paying for a lot of things out of their SIPSA funds and their PTOs, and so we increased school assistant staffing ratios. The mental health counselor is a position that is mostly funded by mental health funding, but the district does need to contribute 10% for that position. And then we increased library media hours across the district and did some classified reclassifications, and then the World Language Program at Sunset Ridge. So based on this, we already had committed $245,000 of ongoing funds, and after last week's discussion, there were no changes made to the ongoing budget. Then one-time expenditures, the top part shows what decisions were made in February, and the IBL painting was something that we had planned for, and we were planning on using the deferred maintenance for that, so we went ahead with that project. The board approved the bid a few board meetings ago. The Ocean Shore roofing, right now is going to be paid. That's the one change that we talked about last week, is we didn't really know at the time, and now we know it's $350,000, and we are able to fund that with some of these one-time funds and then some of the funds that are already in the capital outlay fund, and that was discussed when the board approved the bid at that board meeting. And then some of the other items that we're moving forward with that are very important is seismic shutoff valves, communication systems, the auto external defibrillators, which we've already ordered, and then technology hardware. So we've pretty much committed the whole amount of one-time funds. And so we'll see in June if the budget comes in higher, then we'll have something to talk about at first interim. And then here's the parcel tax update. It's a 3-year, so you can kind of see 3 years how the parcel tax funds have been spent. We receive $1.3 million every year, and every year conservatively we carry over, $40,000. This year we started with $90,000 because we had budgeted a little bit of higher amounts on some of the items. But it's basically teachers' positions. In 16-17, 10 teachers will be paid for from the parcel tax. Teacher support is the old BITSA program, and also supporting teachers that are changing grade levels and other supports that were added in 16-17. And then library media, those are the adding 2 hours per site, so now all sites have 4 hours of library media. And the counseling, we have 2.4 positions in the parcel tax, outdoor education, and school gardens. And so last week we talked about there's a remaining balance of 50,000, and we did make a change to add the lead, and I think I have that on another chart. And I'm missing something here that I think Matt reminded me of in an email today, is the library books. Last week we talked about there's $50,000 left in parcel tax, and so that's one-time money. And so the board did decide to move forward on the library books, which was $35,000. And so we will be ordering those library books out of parcel tax funds, and when we come back at first interim, you'll see that expenditure on the chart of parcel tax funds. And then the lead, library media tech, that's another thing that the board has approved to move forward with. We just need to bring a job description to the board for approval and then move through the process with CSCA. And then child nutrition supervisor, it doesn't look like we're going to continue with the Sodexo consultant contract, and so we're going to go ahead and move her to a 12-month contract and maybe go to a purchasing contract with Sodexo. And that's actually probably going to be a cost savings at this point, because the consultant was a lot more than what is 1 month of salary for our employee. So I'll change this chart for June 15th so that it shows the library books on there. And then here's a breakdown of our expenditures. You can see it's really mostly made up of employees. Teachers, classified administration, and benefits is the majority of our budget. And then the services, books and the county costs. The county costs are the students that attend county classes, and that's about $500,000, and that fluctuates based on the number of students each year. So this is just some of the things we need to keep considering. I talked about Prop 30. The parcel tax is next Tuesday, June 7th, so let's hope we can get that renewed and not have to go back again. And then health benefit cost increases, enrollment trends we really need to watch, because it's just really fluctuating with families moving in and out of Pacifica, and sometimes during the summer you get a flood of students, and you just never know. So we just need to budget very conservatively on our enrollment. Retirement increases, and then the ongoing costs in the LCAP. We need to make sure we're always in alignment with our LCAP. And then we just keep considering the Child Nutrition Fund and Deferred Maintenance Fund. So here's the current multi-year summary. The changes we talked about last week really had to do with parcel tax, and so we didn't make any decisions or changes on our budget. Right now, you can see we used a lot of one-time funds, and then it looks like we're moving into deficit spending. This is really a conservative budget based on the information we have now. We don't know what the benefits are. We budgeted higher for utilities and other costs. We didn't budget for expenditures that we don't know that we're going to receive. For example, special education, we did increase for some high-cost kids, and we need to put in reimbursements for the county. So we're hopeful that it's going to look better when we come back at first interim. When we close the books, we might have a little bit more in the ending fund balance because we budget a little bit higher, and then 16, 17, hopefully the revenues will come in a little bit higher with the governor's June budget. But we do have 6% in reserves moving forward for the 3 years. We maintain a 6% reserve, even with all the expenditures that we have in this budget and one-time expenditures. So we are filing for a positive certification, or we will be on June 15th, based on the budget that's being presented to the board tonight. So next steps, the LCAP and budget will be on June 15th, and then the state adopts their budget, and then we'll do first interim. The one thing that I always point out to the board when they'll get their packet also on June 15th is there is a certification that we're positive, and then you can always see the criteria of standards, what's met and not met, and you can always kind of look through that list, because I know that the budget is over 100 pages, and so that 4-page document is really helpful in your review, and then when you see something, you can call me and we can talk, because it is a large document. So. And that's about it. Tried to keep it short because we went through the whole budget last week. So.
Does anyone have any questions or additions to the budget discussion?
No, thank you.
Yeah, the June 1st meeting is a little brutal between the LCAP and between the 100-page budget and the 134-page LCAP. You really put the board through their paces. I did, I think the things that Ms. Peterson highlighted that are most important is that the vast majority of our funds come from the state and go to employees. That's the most important thing. Even some of the services chunk is actually employees, because some of them, like the nurses and speech therapists, are technically contractors, so they fall into that chunk. And that we're reaching a stage where for the last couple of years we've been seeing increases in funding thanks to a very robust economy and Prop 30. And now it seems like based on receipts as of this month, as of the May revise, it looks like the economy is slowing down, and we're very concerned about what happens if Prop 30 is not renewed. It might be on the November ballot again, and then again it might not. And so so I think like looking forward, this is a particularly nervous time for all of us. So we appreciate very conservative budgeting. It's gotten us through a lot of trouble in the past, and hopefully will get us through whatever we're looking at in the future. Okay. And then this was the public hearing, and then we'll adopt, and we'll have the action item on the 15th. Okay, public hearing on reserves in excess of state minimum level.
Okay, there's no action on this item either. It's just for information for the public on when a school district has reserves in excess of what the state is now calling the minimum level, and that was Senate Bill 858, where they said if school districts have reserves in excess of what the state requirement is, then they need to go to the county superintendent of schools and have like a statement of why you have excess reserves. And so there's 3 pages attached to this document, and it's the 3 fiscal years, and you can just keep it on this one, Tina, because it kind of explains the reserves. So 16-17 is where the school district reserves are projected to be when we end next school year, and what's required is the 3% reserve, which comes out to $948,000 if you could look just a little bit down the page, and then it shows what's our balance after that. And what we need to do is explain why do we have a balance higher than what the state is requiring. And it counts everything, even the one-time funds. And so listed below, it shows the $726,000. That's why we're carrying a balance. It's the one-time discretionary funds, and the PSD is developing a spending plan. And then the additional $93,000 is reserved to cover operating deficits, because when you look at the multi-year, you can see operating deficits moving forward. And so in the current year, you have an ending fund balance, but it actually goes into the future budgets. And then Fund 17 is a board designated reserve fund that was set aside many, many years ago, and that's the board's choice at this time to maintain that amount of money in that fund, so that in total, our reserve will be 6% when you add the general fund and Fund 17. So this is a reporting requirement that we need to submit this to the San Mateo County Office of Ed, and their superintendent will review it. And we really don't have a lot of excess reserves, but we do need to just fulfill this requirement.
Thank you. Any discussion about reserves? Okay. Is there going to be will we need to adopt this to send it to them, or do you just send it to them?
No, I just send it to them and show them that it was discussed at a board meeting, a regularly scheduled board meeting.
Okay. Fantastic. Then let's move down to 10F, change to the San Mateo County SELPA. Dr. Avila.
So this resolution request comes from our SELPA, our Special Education Local Plan out of San Mateo, and it's to add Connect Community Charter as a new LEA member to the SELPA. So annually we get SELPA requests, and this year it's for Connect Community Charter to be added.
Does anybody have any objections to adding them to the SELPA? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is an action item, so I need a motion.
I'll move. Resolve this.
Do you have a second? Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10G, board compensation for missed meeting. Dr. Tuckhoff.
So it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve resolution number 20160601C, and that's board compensation for missed meetings. As Laverne Villalobos said, she was ill last meeting, and so in order for her to get reimbursed for that day, we need to take action to compensate her.
Okay. And I would like to remind everybody that our monthly compensation is $160, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there any? No. Is there? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion of this? Do I have a motion to pass the resolution and compensate
I
Ms.
motion
Villalobos?
to pass the resolution to compensate Laverne.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Passes 4-0.
All against? All abstaining?
Abstaining.
Okay, there you go, 4-0.
Villalobos abstaining.
Excellent. Okay, item 11, board bylaws, policies, administrative regulations. 11A, employee use of technology. Dr. Avila.
So this exhibit is in regards to employee use of technology. We already have the board policy 4040, and we do have an acceptable use agreement, but we wanted to bring forward this as our exhibit, along with some revised language to our addendum to the technology acceptable use policy. Again, this is for employees and other non-student users. And we are bringing this to the board for first reading and discussion.
Does anybody have any? Yes, Ms. Sheehan.
On the PSD acceptable use policy attachment B, on page 2, number 11, I am just wondering, it says accessing, transmitting, or downloading extraordinarily large files. Do people know what extraordinarily large files? I mean, that just seems very vague. I'm just wondering.
That's fair.
That seems okay. I mean, who decides what is an extraordinarily large file?
I'm looking at Tina because I don't know if there's an exact number that's ever been in discussion with our tech committee, but I think it would be.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not necessary, but me being so low-level tech, I know if I read that, I'd think, what is an extraordinarily...
When it freezes the system.
But by then you're in trouble, right?
And
I don't know.
What had been happening in the past, and I don't know if it's, I think it also depends upon how robust your system is, et cetera. But it's something that we can definitely go back to the technology committee and investigate. But there have been situations or times when people are downloading during like peak hours files that just bring the whole system down. And so and I remember one of the things that I suggested that we do, which was not handled, and people were kind of worried about, was that we couldn't do iTunes or play, certain things that just really took a lot of bandwidth. And so those are the things that I believe started to just build into our policy, so people would be at least thoughtful about when you're going to do that, how you're going to do it. You shouldn't do it during peak times. You should do it during, like download it and then save it on your desktop so that you could just open it rather than trying to keep streaming, those types of things. So
I guess the reason that, well, along with just looking at it from my view of saying I wouldn't know what that is this whole attachment of discipline if you do one of these things. So that was sort of what made me think, is this something that needs to be better defined, or is it okay to just sort of leave this broad?
And what we can do is put, for example, like, and maybe provide some of that guidelines. The full document is really used to be a guide with how you use the technology. And when we added the addendum, and it also creates some policies around, what is professionally acceptable, etc. So then we pulled that information for a signature page that really then highlighted those things that are truly against professional conduct. So the hope is that this full document kind of gives you a place to go to just read about how we use technology. Then it brings it down to, and therefore these are the professional conduct pieces that we expect our employees to abide by.
I think this is a good point, mostly because most of the other things on this list are in a very different category. Number 2, criminal activities that can be punished under the law. Selling or purchasing illegal items. Those are both easily identifiable, like either it's illegal or it's not. And so it's easy for people. I think your point is that people should be able to know if they're violating a policy or not, and it's really hard for them to know because they don't, they might legitimately not know. I think a lot of people may download files not knowing how large they are, at all, just not have, you click on it, you don't know how large that file is, and it turns out it's too large, and what's too large also depends on the network. Today's too large is not tomorrow's too large. So,
and it wasn't 2 years ago.
And so it sort of feels like maybe there should, I don't know if this should necessarily be stricken from there, but I would be kind of okay if it were. And if you wanted to put this in a, I feel like there's a difference between these are bad things that we're going to discipline you for, and these are bad practices that we would rather you not do, and if you do them, we will help instruct you in not doing them again, as opposed to, these would be, grounds for writing you up or something. I don't know what we would exactly do with it, but it's just a thought, right? Is that
I just, again, as I was reading through, and, maybe our staff is probably much more tech savvy than I am, but as I was reading through this, I was, again, thinking, oh, I get that, and then I got to this and thought, gee, I would have no idea what is extraordinarily large. That just seemed like a very vague sort of...
Do you want to just sort of take that back and think about it, and when it comes back next meeting, maybe it will... Maybe you will have thought about it and have a better solution.
So my thinking would be that we would bring back for another first reading, and then we'll do the August 3rd would be the consent. And if, we'll see for Laverne, if she's not going to be at the August 3rd meeting, that, we definitely would need to hear your voice on the 15th. Does that make sense? Okay.
My only thoughts on this is that we could talk with the tech team. I think either striking it because it's different than the rest of the things there, or changing it to. I know originally when we were writing this, we were talking about movies or long videos. That was really what was, so we could be specific about that. Videos over 4 minutes in length, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, some kind of
such
measurement.
As, you know what I mean? Like a such as. So anyway, so I think we could bring it back in one of those two forms.
Okay.
And then we're working with Bright Bites over the course of the next year to maybe 18 months to redo everything anyway.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on acceptable use of technology? Okay. All right. So that'll come back for another first reading on the 15th. 11B, Board Bylaw 9220, Governing Board Election.
So I bring this forward to you today because we will have 2 board members going up for election, or 2 places going up for election in November. And so one of the things that I do recall is we've always had these conversations around certain items in this particular board bylaw, and so I wanted to give the trustees an opportunity to review the board bylaw, look at what the sample CSBA bylaw had as options, and then make a decision if we want to keep the current bylaw as is, that's fine, and then that will help guide me in preparing the June 15th board item, or to modify it, and hopefully we can take action tonight, and therefore I would be able to use the new board bylaw. So, with that, I would like to start with probably, I think that the two highlighted areas were the fact that in our current board bylaw, we do ask that the person running for election would be the one who pays the expenses.
Just for the candidates.
The candidates, thank you. And that, and for the statement of qualifications, et cetera, is that what the one that?
Yeah.
And then there is the option, however, for the district to assume the cost of the printing, et cetera. So currently we are under, let's see, we are under option 2, and there is an option 1 for the district defraying the cost.
I'll explain. This was actually my request that we bring this back, and I had, we'd had this discussion before, before the election when 3 of you were elected, and it revolved around the question of whether this was potentially prohibiting people from running for the board because they would have to pay for the candidate statement. And the candidate statement, the page usually costs about $1,200, and it gets split however many ways there are candidates. So obviously, in the case of the presidential year elections, there have to be at least 3 candidates. So that means it costs $400 per candidate. And in the case of the off-year elections, there'd have to be 4 candidates, which means it would be $300 each. And at the time, the feeling was that candidates should have skin in the game, that they should and therefore they should pay for the costs. And I asked for it to be brought back for us to rediscuss and potentially see if we felt that this was something we would consider changing.
I think we've had other discussions too about how possibly doing different districts and electing people from, up in Fairmont, Sharp Park, back of the valley, Lindemar. And I do think that there's a possibility that there could be some potential candidates who can't afford the $400 for the candidate statement. And the candidate statement is something that explains, when you're looking at your ballots, you can go through the booklet and see what that person's all about. And so if you have a good candidate, but they don't have the money to put themselves out there, the school district could be losing, a possibly good person as a board member. So, I think if it's fair across the board, I think that would be something that we should consider.
It's hard to get people to run for school board as is, and so making it a little bit easier for somebody who doesn't, who has a tighter budget to run for school board might open it up for somebody else. But the other thing about with district elections, that's something that we have discussed before and have thought we didn't need to go there at this time, and it used to be that the board was pretty central to one part of the Pacifica, but it seems that we are a little bit more spread out these days, or at least with this board we are. So maybe we don't need to think about that yet, although there is disproportionality kind of things going on with school boards that are, I guess with all elections, right? That are,
yeah, can I ask, that's the other point, right there. Yeah, so we're gonna get to the district elections issue, that's the other part of this.
Actually,
No, that's not the other, okay,
Well,
never mind, sorry.
However, electing board members is one of the areas, and we currently are elections using at-large voting methods. And we have had discussions about it and felt that at this time, because of the way, the uniqueness of our community, that we felt that we could continue with the at-large.
Yeah, the only reason I brought that up is I just don't want to confuse two issues.
Right.
Is like there's
There
like 3 or 4 different
there is
points.
another point.
So this point is about the cost of the, let's
right.
discuss the cost of the, let's discuss the cost of the ballot book, then we can discuss the at-large elections, and then we can and then we can discuss, what's the other point?
Tie votes.
Right, tie votes, okay.
we don't have to worry about the odd year elections, with some boards are like really struggling with right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So statement of qualifications is the area we're
right,
currently.
and people still, obviously need to run campaigns. So this is just about the ballot.
If the district paid for the statement, should there be a cap on how many? I mean, maybe you only have 2 or 3 people running. What if you had 8 or 10?
Well, it's divided by the cost to us is the
400?
same. Well, the cost to us is the same because it's divided by the number of candidates. So the page is like $1,200. If there's 3 candidates, it's $400. If there's 4 candidates, it's $300 each. If there was 5, it would be $1,200 divided by 5. So, do you know what I mean? So the
they
cost.
Would put that many on one page.
Well, I guess you're right. I mean, I guess eventually it would wind up. Eventually, it could wind up to 2 pages, but we'd be okay. So, I mean, are there going to be 100 pages? Like, are there going to be 100 candidates?
Page is what I'm saying. I think that there's at a point where it would go up, but.
Personally, I feel like we should sort of be so lucky that what's the maximum? What's the maximum? I can't remember an election where we've had more than 4. So, and that fits on a page. You're right. Like in theory, we could have 100 candidates, but I just don't think that really. I don't know that occurs. But it could, and that's a legitimate
There should be a cap,
question.
and then that amount would be divided between the candidates so that they could maybe pay a portion of it, if it ever got to that, but.
Is that, would that be an option?
I would think so. So what I can do is, we would pay up to the first page type of thing.
Yeah, up to a certain amount, and then if there's more candidates, they get a portion, a divided portion of it. So they pay for most of it.
Whatever, it's your board policy. What do you guys?
If you might want to have a cap in there in case we ever did have.
How does everybody else? How does everybody else feel about that? I mean, what's the cost of the election, right? When we have an election, we have to pay for the election, right? How much does that cost?
It's like 30,000. It
It's like
depends on how many other election.
Right.
It's divided.
So so we're already paying like $30,000 just to have the election. So it seems to me that if we have to pay to have the election, we might as well have a good election with as many candidates as we can. If it turned out to be like 2 pages at like, a grand total of $2,500, like, it seems to me that if we had that many people who were interested and wouldn't do it otherwise, maybe that's a good idea, but I don't.
I think it would be good to like say we'll cover up to 2 pages, because we're never going to have more than that. 2 pages.
Yeah,
but in case you ever do.
Yeah.
It's there and you don't have to go back and reverse it
Yeah,
later.
how do you feel about two pages?
So 2 pages is $2,400.
Yeah, I mean, it could go up if their printing costs go up.
So it would be fair for all the different candidates to have their,
And if it goes over, let's say to the 3rd page, using 2,400, then it goes up to 36. The third page would be divided evenly about, between
those
all
20
those
people.
candidates in
All
the
of the
first
candidates.
2 pages,
Yeah.
plus that third
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
Just all on the third.
Right, yeah, all the candidates would pay the same,
Pay some
whatever
portion.
that, whatever that was, yeah. Opinions?
I think it sounds really fair for the families that don't have extra income to put towards running an election or putting something in the ballot book for themselves. And I really do feel like we could be missing some people out there just because they don't have money running for the board, and they're wanting to volunteer anyways because $160 really isn't much.
Okay. So you can take that to see if that's
Yeah.
that's doable, and then how would we handle that in order to, if we wanted to do that, to get it done in time for you to send it to the county?
What I'll do is I will go ahead and put it under consent, or I could probably put it as an action item, and then we just do it as a separate action item in case I don't get the wording just quite right. For the June 15th.
I was gonna
I
suggest,
see, yeah.
it's okay. I actually think it should be a separate action item because one of my questions was, I don't think Andrea and I should vote on it because we're up for election. So I sort of feel like, in theory, this is a decision that the board members who are not up for election and won't benefit from it immediately should make. So that's not to tell Andrea
Okay,
whether
so
she can or
one
can't
of the
vote, but I think
things-
I will not.
I can
vote
work
on
it out with, I will talk with legal counsel, get the wording. If we need to, I only have to turn this in July.
Oh,
So
okay.
if we potentially have a work study in June 22nd, which I will be asking, then I can bring that one item forward.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So the other thing is that we keep the candidate statement option to 200 words, so that way it keeps it small.
You
All
should
right.
learn to be concise.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, all right, so the next thing
Is
on,
tie votes in board member elections. There are 3 options there. We currently do option 1, I believe. And that we kind of consider it when it happens. Option 2 is whenever a tie makes it impossible to determine, then it will be done by lot, where you just pull a name out of a hat. Option 3 is that there will be a runoff election, which will be at the cost of the district. So currently, we are option 1.
So option 1 gives us a choice of either.
Right. So what I would bring forward to you at, let's say, the whatever board meeting it is, depending upon what legal counsel says, is I will then ask you at the time of completing the document for Mark Church, which would you prefer, by tie or runoff election? So you will be able to choose then. Or if you all think, why would we want to run the cost of an election, special election, if by lot is your preference, then that would be option 2.
what do you think?
I hate to see the expense of another election.
Andrea?
You know, we're going to have a lot of people running for these positions now. Because they're not going to have to pay the $300. So it's good to leave the options open, because there may be something very hotly contested that, makes sense.
Okay. So we can keep that as is.
So,
I will,
I was going to say, I agree with Elizabeth. I don't see why we should. I was like, I don't want to pay for an election for, if it really came down to exactly one vote, not that, I don't really want to discuss it for 20 minutes, because it's never going to happen. But if it did, I could,
Now it will.
Now it will. Anyway, I'm just,
So
but
we should.
I could go on.
And you will be able to, at that meeting, decide which
that.
direction.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last thing, so I've gotten guidance on that, and we will go ahead and do an action item, or we'll do a next board item at the next meeting, is to have a discussion around whether we want to have like a candidate information night where a couple of board members, and so of course my suggestion would be the president and the vice president. We can't have the entire board, otherwise it's a meeting. Just have a candidates night for those people who might be interested in running for the board during the month of June, so that they can make a decision or ask questions and determine if it's something of interest for them. We could establish something like that. Would that have helped the three? Yeah. And we have to be nice.
Not scary.
Right.
What do you think, candidate information night?
Yeah, candidate information night. I thought it might be helpful, just to open it up to.
You look like you want.
I think it would be helpful, but are we going to make it like you have to do it?
Oh, no.
Okay, just
Right, and they also offer information meetings in July at the in San Mateo County office.
But you have to schlep down to Tower Road.
You have to go to Tower.
Pacifica
Right. So this is a little easier and less threatening, maybe. You're among friends. So does that sound of interest? Then I can work with Kathy and Matt on a day, and you're welcome to join in the audience and listen.
You don't heckle. It's too threatening.
All right.
Okay.
Does that cover everything you need for?
That does.
Okay. All right. Future agenda items. We kind of we already went through.
Yeah, we know what we're doing.
Elizabeth asked. Yeah. Okay.
So, for the district business on June 15th, I do have a question. We do have the CSBA Legislatures Awards Program. If we want to send any nominees, we need to do that by September 2nd or something. So I could bring that forward August 24th if you'd like, just to see if you want to have any recommendations. Or I can bring it to the June 15th meeting where all of you were there and could just have a discussion about it and could think about if there are candidates that would be of interest to you.
And this is this CSBA members, or is this like legislators, or
yes,
for legislators?
For us to nominate legislators.
Okay.
You want me to bring? I'll bring that information item forward, and then we can just have a discussion.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then we'll do the August 3rd for the May board policies. And then my suggestion is to have a work study for June 22nd. We do have the results of our ODSTAT survey. Thompson and Dorfman have been reviewing that information, so I believe they will be ready for a work study for us if you would like.
I would like. Would you
Yes.
like?
Yes.
We would like.
We would like.
Yes, June 22nd.
June 22nd.
Is everyone available?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'll be at 6 p.m.
Okay.
And I think that's it.
Is there anything that anyone on the board wants to potentially add to future agenda items? Nothing at this time?
Wendy, I was just wondering if the suspension rates, or Ray, if we're going to have that report again in August or September, like how many we had and...
I think we did that with our school climate report, and so that is going to happen after we get the state information, is that correct? Which will probably happen by October, November, I think we looked at. So, but you will get that information. And we are monitoring that, as well as we're looking at in-house suspensions as well, just to see what the patterns are.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We're adjourned at 8:24.